Chapter 1977. The middle-aged uncle was patiently guiding her, and she was extremely serious in her studies. However, she would still need some time to study like this. However, she believed that as long as she put her heart into it, it wouldn't take too long. Have you finished reading the books I gave you? Nangong Wu asked. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and smiled. Yes, I've finished reading them. That's good. Since you've finished reading them, you must have a certain understanding of explosives. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She was no longer a layman, but she still didn't know much about the manufacturing process. I have to discuss the manufacturing method with them first. Take a rest first or go back first. I'll find you later. Nangong Wu thought for a moment before slowly speaking. She had been researching on her own for the past few days. However, the results weren't very good. It wasn't until this morning that the people Yu Linfeng invited arrived, so she was discussing the manufacturing method with them. Right now, she didn't have the time to teach Bailey Hongzhuang. Moreover, there were so many people in the explosives workshop, so Hongzhuang wouldn't understand even if she stayed here. She was very clear that if Hongzhuang didn't understand, she would feel very awkward if she stayed here. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Nangong Wu's expression and understood her thoughts. Alright, Shirmu. Then I'll go back first. You must have been reading books without rest these past few days. Go back and rest well. Nangong Wu's eyes revealed a trace of concern. From Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, she could tell that Hongzhuang must have been busy reading books these past few days. Thus, she faintly revealed her exhaustion. Hongzhuang's background was so pitiful. The matter of Lan Yunxiao and his wife must have been pressing down on Hongzhuang's heart. Now that there was finally an opportunity, Hongzhuang's impatience could be imagined. Mistress, I see that you are more tired than I am. You should rest well. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Nangong Wu with concern and heartache. It was normal for her to be nervous and worried when her parents were in such a situation. But Mistress was also worried about her, so she felt even more apologetic. Ever since he entered the Chaos Ring, he had been learning from the middle-aged man for the past 2 days without any rest. But before he entered the primal chaos world, at least he rested for a while. However, judging from Nangong Wu's current situation, it was obvious that she had not rested for the past few days. Although Nangong Wu's cultivation was higher than hers, but if she didn't rest for a long time, her body wouldn't be able to take it. Although she hoped to save her parents as soon as possible, she didn't want her teacher's wife to be so tired because of her. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Nangong Wu was startled and looked a bit embarrassed. I'm usually like this, so I'm already used to it. You don't need to take it to heart. Nangong Wu smiled. She hoped that she could help Hongzhuang and quickly save Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunxiao. However, she also didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to have more psychological burdens. Hearing Nangong Wu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang felt even more moved. Mistress, I know that everything you are doing is for my own good, but if you tire yourself out because of this, I will feel even more guilty. Chapter 1978. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's sincere look, Nangong Wu was also very touched. She immediately smiled and said, I understand. I will go back and rest after I finish discussing with them. Hearing Nangong Wu's answer, Bailey Hongzhuang was relieved. If the master's wife was sick because of her, then she would feel the most sorry and would be full of guilt to her master. Hongzhuang, then you should cultivate by yourself for the next 2 days. Nangong Wu's face was filled with a bright smile. After I finish discussing with them, I will go back and rest. Come find me in 2. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Okay, master's wife. Before Bailey Hongzhuang left, she also took a few books from Nangong Wu's explosives workshop. She had been learning about explosives from the middle-aged uncle these days. When she came to Nangong Wu in a few days, she believed that she had made some progress. If she only read a few books and had such understanding, Nangong Wu would be surprised. Correspondingly, if she read more books, her performance would not be too strange when the time came. Nangong Wu also felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's actions were very normal. After all, this matter was Bailey Hongzhuang's own matter. She must be very anxious. At this moment, it was very normal for her to be eager to know the relevant information. Not long after Bailey Hongzhuang walked out of the explosives workshop, she saw Yu Linfeng. When Yu Linfeng saw Bailey Hongzhuang leave, his eyes were filled with doubts. Hongzhuang, is your master's wife not in the explosives workshop? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly and said, Master's wife is discussing with others about making explosives. I can't help with anything now, so I left first. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Yu Linfeng nodded slightly, his eyes filled with understanding. Go back and have a good rest. You must have worked hard these days, Yu Linfeng said with concern. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't say much. From Yu Linfeng's attitude, she could tell that he definitely wanted to find Shermu. Master's wife hadn't rested for so many days. Given how much Master cared for her, he must be very worried. Master's wife said that she would go back to rest after she finished discussing with those people about making explosives. Bailey Hongzhuang left behind a sentence and walked towards the direction of the palace. The three beasts followed behind her. In fact, the three beasts also hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to stay in the Chaos Ring for a little longer. With Master's intelligence and wisdom, no matter what he learns, he will definitely succeed. It would just take a bit more time. To Master now, the most important thing was time. If she could stay in the Chaos Ring, they believed that her improvement would be the fastest. However, from the current situation, Nangong Wu obviously didn't have time to teach Master during this period of time. Therefore, Master still had plenty of time. Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts were the same as the three beasts. She hadn't told Master and Shermu about the Chaos Ring yet. Therefore, she had to keep it a secret for the time being. After returning to the palace, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately entered the Chaos Ring. Chapter 1979. After all, the secret of the Chaos Ring was extremely important. Now, once the owner enters the Primordial Chaos Ring, the Primordial Chaos Ring will reveal itself. If others were to find out about this, it would be very troublesome. Bailey Hongzhuang entered the stone room and continued to learn from the middle-aged man. When the middle-aged man saw Bailey Hongzhuang appear, he continued to teach her what he had discussed with Bailey Hongzhuang the last time. Bailey Hongzhuang listened carefully to the middle-aged man's every word and committed it to memory. In the following period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang continued to learn from the middle-aged man. Only when she was too exhausted would she enter into a state of cultivation and cultivate properly. However, in the current situation, cultivation was not the most important thing. Therefore, once Bailey Hongzhuang had recovered, she would enter the Chaos Ring to learn again. When the three beasts saw how serious Bailey Hongzhuang was, they did not want to cause any more trouble for Bailey Hongzhuang. In the process of learning, Bailey Hongzhuang's understanding of the subject had also improved by leaps and bounds. She had gone from being completely ignorant to understanding so much now. This improvement could not be said to be small. Although Bailey Hongzhuang had not begun to develop explosives on her own, she already had a comprehensive understanding of explosives. She only needed to give it a try. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang was still cultivating in the Chaos Ring when Baisher's voice suddenly sounded in Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. Master, the palace mistress is here. Hearing Baisher's voice, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately exited the Chaos Ring. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang exited the Chaos Ring, Nangong Wu's figure appeared in her line of sight. Hongzhuang, how's your reading these past few days? Nangong Wu's face was rippling with a faint smile. Her bright and moving face was rosy and enchanting. Obviously, Nangong Wu had just rested, so she came to look for Bailey Hongzhuang. Looking at Nangong Wu like this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with a smile. Mistress, you're here, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. I've finished reading the contents of the book. Hearing this, Nangong Wu nodded in satisfaction. In that case, do you want to study explosives with me today? Nangong Wu asked. However, she felt that it would be very difficult for Bailey Hongzhuang to have a certain level of achievement in the art of explosives before Bailey Hongzhuang's parents were rescued. However, it was also a good opportunity for Bailey Hongzhuang to have a certain understanding of this aspect. Okay, Bailey Hongzhuang said immediately. She had learned a lot in the Chaos Ring, but until now, she had not tried to make explosives with her own hands. If she did not try it herself, Even if she knew a lot in theory, it would not be of much use. Now that she was going to the explosives workshop with Mistress, she could try to develop it herself. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's excited look, Nan Gongwu was very happy. She felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was not only because Bailey Hongzhuang was anxious to rescue her parents, but also because Bailey Hongzhuang was interested in explosives. Since you want to go too, let's not delay. Let's go, Nan Gongwu said with a smile. Chapter 1980. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Nan Gongwu went to the explosives workshop, Di Beichen also rushed to Tiangang sect. In the process of rushing, Di Beichen had already caught up with He Mu. So He Mu had not reported this matter to Si Tian. After knowing that Di Beichen had returned alone, Si Tian's eyes were filled with doubt. He knew that Di Beichen accompanied Bailey Hongzhuang to Wuji Palace this time. Logically speaking, they should have returned together. Why did Di Beichen come back alone now? Without waiting for Si Tian to look for Di Beichen had already gone directly to Si Tian's palace. Master. After seeing Si Tian, Di Beichen bowed deeply. Seeing this, Si Tian smiled and waved his hand. He had always been extremely satisfied with Di Beichen as his disciple, and even treated him as his own grandson. What's more, Di Beichen now had another identity, which was his grandson-in-law. This relationship could be said to be extremely close. Get up, why did you come back first? Why didn't Hongzhuang come back with you? Si Tian asked aloud. Seeing this, Di Beichen went straight to the point and said, Master, Shitian Tower has sent back news. As Di Beichen's voice fell, Si Tian's expression suddenly changed, and his eyes instantly froze. You said Shitian Tower sent back news? Si Tian's voice trembled a little. He had always been very concerned about Mu Lingbing's news, but he had waited for so long without any news. So he had been very anxious. If he had not asked Shitian Tower to investigate this news, he would have already taken action himself. However, with his complicated relationship with Yu Siqing, if he went, Yu Siqing would be even more unfavorable to them. It was precisely because of this that he had been restraining his impulse, and did not go to look for her. Now that he suddenly heard the news from Shitian Tower, he could not help but feel a little nervous. At this moment, Si Tian's mood was the same as Bailey Hongzhuang's when she first found out about this. He hoped this was good news, but he was worried that this good news would become bad news. If this was really bad news, then he would rather never know this news. Di Beichen noticed the change in Si Tian's expression, and immediately nodded and said, Yes, Shitian Tower has found the location of Hongzhuang's parents. Di Beichen knew that Si Tuyan's mood was complicated at the moment, so he directly told Si Tuyan the final result, saving Si Tuyan from more worries. Sure enough, after hearing Di Beichen's words, Si Tuyan's heart, which had been hanging in the air, also relaxed. Where are they being held captive? Si Tuyan asked. When he thought about how his daughter and son-in-law had been imprisoned for so many years, his heart couldn't help but twitch. If Mu Jin's knew about this, she would definitely be in more pain than him. In the past, she had been kept in the dark and didn't know about this at all, so after so many years. Since Mu Lingbing was married to Lan Yunxiao, then Mu Jin's must know about this matter. Thinking of this, Si Tian's mood became even more complicated. If Mu Jin's knew about this matter, then she definitely wouldn't have ignored it for so many years. However, until now, he had not seen Mu Jin's, nor had he heard any news about her. Chapter 1981. Si Tuyan was really worried. He had searched for so many years without any results. Could it be that Mu Jin's had completely disappeared? Although he felt that this possibility was constantly increasing in his mind, Si Tuyan was still unwilling to believe it. In this life other than Mu Jin's, there was no one else in his heart. If something happened to Mu Jin's, then he really had no hope in this life. However, in this situation, the most important thing was to rescue Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing. He had never fulfilled any of his responsibilities as a father to his daughter. Now, he only hoped that he had a chance to make up for it. Uncle and aunt have always been imprisoned in the dungeon under Yu Siqing's residence. Di Beichen told Si Tuyan the truth. Now that they knew more and more, His hatred for Wuxia grew. Ever since he was young, he had seen many disgusting cultivators. However, the one he hated the most was Wuxia. Following Bewitching's words, Tuyan's face instantly turned ugly. His deep, dark eyes were filled with hatred and disgust. A strong killing intent exploded from Tuyan's heart. He originally wanted to kill Wuxia, but because Wuxia knew many things, perhaps it was his only chance to find Mu Jin's. So although he hated her, he didn't kill her. However, Wuxia had imprisoned his daughter for so many years. More than 10 years. Wuxia had imprisoned them all this time. The last time he went to the Yu clan, he was already very close to his daughter, but for some reason, he left just like that. An indescribable pain and regret spread in Tuyan's heart. If he had known about this earlier, his daughter wouldn't have suffered so much. Wuxia had always stayed in her residence and rarely left. It was because of this that it was very difficult for us to investigate. The Heaven Slaughter Pavilion also spent a lot of effort to confirm the final location. Bewitching felt somewhat helpless. In the past, he had also thought of this possibility. However, he had never been able to confirm it. Wuxia rarely left, and they could not alert the other members of the Yu clan. Hence, they had been trying to gather information from the other members of the Yu clan. However, in the end, no definite results were obtained. Wuxia's personality was extremely strange, and she did not have good relationships with others. Even in the entire Yu clan, not many people had much contact with Wuxia. As a result, their investigation became even more difficult. Damned Wuxia! Tuyan clenched his right fist and slammed it on the coffee table. Bang! The tea table collapsed and turned into nothingness. I must kill this vicious woman. Even with Tuyan's indifference, he could not help but gnash his teeth at this moment. If it wasn't for Wuxia's interference all these years, how could he have ended up in such a situation? He should have had a very good family. No matter if it was Mu Jin's, Mu Lingbing, Lan Yunxiao, or Hong Zhuang, none of them would have been able to endure such pain. He was the one who started all these mistakes, so he wanted to personally deal with the main culprit. Looking at Tuyan's angry appearance, Bewitching was also very understanding. Chapter 1982. Master, that Wuxia is extremely cunning. If you go directly to Wuxia to take her life, she will definitely realize that something is wrong. Once the Yu clan is attracted, things will become difficult. If you don't succeed, then uncle and auntie will be in danger. Bewitching said in a low voice. If it was possible, he also hoped to take Wuxia's life directly. However, according to their understanding of Wuxia would not easily leave the Yu clan's territory. In this way, the situation would not be so easy to solve. Hearing Bewitching's words, Tuyan also calmed down. He thought carefully and understood that Bewitching's words were indeed reasonable. I finally understand why Wuxia always stayed within a certain range when I went to look for her. I'm afraid this is also the reason. Bewitching nodded slightly. For this matter, Hong Zhuang and I have discussed with Palace Master Yu and his wife, and decided to use explosives. Explosives? Tuyan frowned slightly. Obviously, he did not expect them to choose such a method. That's right, this is the Palace Master's wife's idea. Bewitching slowly told Tuyan the whole plan. This matter was extremely important to Tuyan, and Tuyan might have a better idea. After Tuyan understood the whole plan, he pondered for a moment and nodded. This is also a good idea, but ordinary explosives do not have enough power. Tuyan also had a certain understanding of explosives, but because the power of explosives was limited to a certain range, it did not have any effect on stronger cultivators, so he did not pay too much attention to it. However, in terms of movement, the movement of explosives had always been very big, and it did have the effect of attracting people's attention. Bewitching's expression was also filled with worry. Palace Master's wife has always been very knowledgeable about explosives. Now, Hong Zhuang is staying in Limitless Palace to discuss this matter with Palace Master's wife. Palace Master Yu has also found an expert in this field, but as for the final result, we are not sure. Hearing this, Tuyan nodded slightly. At present, As long as they could make a powerful explosive, this method would work. If they couldn't produce it, then they would have to think of other ways. Give me some time to think about this matter. Determination filled Situ Yan's eyes. No matter what, he had to rescue Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao this time. They had been imprisoned for so many years. With Yu Siqing's hatred for him, Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao must have suffered a lot. When he thought of this, Situ Yan felt extremely guilty. He was the one who had made all these mistakes. Yet his junior had to bear the consequences for him. This feeling made him even more uncomfortable. All right, master. Let's think of a better way, Bewitching said. For such a serious matter, they had to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Situ Yan and Bewitching looked at each other, their eyes filled with determination. Bailey Hongzhuang followed Nangong Wu to the explosives workshop. Compared to the first time she came to the explosives workshop a few days ago, she knew nothing about it. Now she already knew what these materials were. She was able to distinguish them, which was undoubtedly a great improvement. Chapter 1983. Nangong Wu had a bright smile on her face. Bailey Hongzhuang had read a lot of books these days, and they had introduced a lot of relevant information. Of course, Bailey Hongzhuang could not grasp too much just by relying on the contents of the books. However, Nangong Wu still wanted to test Bailey Hongzhuang. She wanted to know if Bailey Hongzhuang had any talent in explosives. Talent was a very wonderful thing. As long as a cultivator had talent, they would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort when learning about explosives. She hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang would have talent. Now, she only needed to test her a little, and she would be able to see how talented Bailey Hongzhuang was in this area. Thinking back, when she first came into contact with explosives, she had a special liking for them. She could even remember some of the special materials very clearly. It was because of this that she discovered that she had a special talent in explosives. Looking at Nangong Wu's smile, Bailey Hongzhuang understood that Nangong Wu wanted to test her. A faint smile appeared on her delicate and charming face. If she only relied on the contents of the books before, she did not have much knowledge. However, after studying in the Chaos Ring for the past few days, she had gained quite a bit of understanding of it. Mistress, this is the flame flower. Bailey Hongzhuang pointed at the bright red flower beside her and smiled. Hearing that, Nangong Wu smiled and nodded. That's right, this is the flame flower. What kind of effect does it have? The flame flower's attribute is explosive. After it is developed into powder, and added a little when making explosives, the power of the explosives will increase by a lot. However, because its attribute is so violent, you have to be extra careful when you touch the flame flower. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Nangong Wu's eyes brightened. She remembered that in the books she gave Bailey Hongzhuang, there were records of the flame flower. But she did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to remember it so clearly. What about this one? Nangong Wu asked as she pointed at a gray stone at the side. This stone was gray in color, and was very inconspicuous. If it wasn't placed in this explosives workshop, and was placed somewhere else, it wouldn't be noticed at all. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell on the rock that Nangong Wu was pointing at, and the corners of her lips slowly lifted into a smile. This is limestone. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile was firm, her voice neither slow nor slow. When the middle-aged man in the Chaos Ring was teaching her, he had asked her to recognize all the materials. Therefore, not only did she remember the appearance of these materials, but she also remembered their attributes and effects clearly. After all, sharpening a knife would not delay the work of cutting firewood. There were many things that needed to be learned from memorizing the materials. If one could not even memorize the materials, then wanting to make explosives was simply a pipe dream. Just like when she first learned medicine, she did not immediately start learning to diagnose. Instead, she started by memorizing the medicinal materials and understanding the properties of the medicinal materials. Only after memorizing the properties of the medicinal materials, when learning to diagnose people's illness, would it have twice the effect with half the effort. The attribute of limestone is also explosive, but it belongs to the opposite type of the flame flower. Chapter 1984. When Bailey Hongzhuang was talking about the characteristics of the limestone, her expression was extremely calm, as if everything was already in her mind, without the slightest bit of nervousness and apprehension. When Nan Gongwu saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was so proficient in describing the effects of the limestone, her eyes couldn't help but be filled with a touch of surprise. Although she knew that this matter was related to the safety of Bailey Hongzhuang's parents, Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely be extremely attentive and serious when reading this book, but she didn't even think for a moment and directly said the results, which was really a little surprising. Then what about this? Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang understood so clearly, Nan Gongwu also decided to test Bailey Hongzhuang properly. She wanted to know how much Bailey Hongzhuang had grasped. After all, the more Bailey Hongzhuang knew, the more she didn't need to repeat the content to Bailey Hongzhuang again, which could also save a lot of time. Facing Nan Gongwu's questions, Bailey Hongzhuang explained the attributes and effects of these materials one by one. Recently, she had been remembering the names, characteristics, and attributes of these medicinal materials. One must know that the middle-aged uncle in the chaotic world was not a person to be trifled with. If she didn't remember it and couldn't answer the middle-aged uncle's questions well, the middle-aged uncle would give her a certain punishment. This kind of punishment was not pleasant, so in order to avoid such a punishment and to save her parents, Bailey Hongzhuang could be said to be extremely serious in recording everything. Nan Gongwu asked about several materials in a row, and Bailey Hongzhuang answered them all in an orderly manner. The more she asked, the more shocked Nan Gongwu was. Although Bailey Hongzhuang had read some books, she didn't have a physical reference. How could Bailey Hongzhuang remember so clearly? At this moment, Nan Gongwu couldn't help but feel that Bailey Hongzhuang was really too abnormal. Previously, when she heard Yu Linfeng say that Bailey Hongzhuang had special attainments in many aspects, although she was surprised, it was far from the shock that Bailey Hongzhuang gave her now. One must know that the time she took to remember these materials was very short. It was precisely because of this that everyone said that she had special attainments in this aspect. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had used even less time than her, but she had remembered more than her. This was simply too much to make people speechless. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang was a genius, the strength that she displayed was too shocking. Nan Gongwu only felt that the word genius wasn't enough to describe Bailey Hongzhuang's strength. She was simply a demon. She couldn't understand how Bailey Hongzhuang could remember all of this. Originally, she had intended to introduce these materials to Bailey Hongzhuang so that she could feel some sense of accomplishment. However, at this moment, after facing Bailey Hongzhuang, she didn't feel any sense of accomplishment, only a strong sense of defeat. This was too perverse. Yu Linfeng was abnormal, so be it. She never thought that the disciple he found would be so abnormal. Nan Gongwu was really speechless at this moment. She really couldn't find any sense of accomplishment. She only felt that she was nothing. If Bailey Hongzhuang had studied explosives for a little longer, her results would have far surpassed hers. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the originally happy Nan Gongwu, and her expression suddenly changed. Her eyes couldn't help but have a touch of doubt. Chapter 1985. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Nan Gongwu in confusion. She didn't understand why Nan Gongwu's expression suddenly became dejected in such a short period of time. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's blank expression, Nan Gongwu helplessly waved her hand and said, "Nothing. I was just thinking, in such a short period of time, how did you manage to memorize so much content? It's really amazing." Nan Gongwu's expression recovered very quickly. In a short period of time, she was once again full of smiles. Although she felt a sense of defeat previously, after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's huge improvement, she was very happy in her heart. In this way, her explosive skills would have a successor in the future. After all, she could only improve when she communicated with someone who was better at explosive skills. If Bailey Hongzhuang was really a person who didn't have any talent in explosive skills, then she still wouldn't be interested. Hearing Nan Gongwu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly, but in her heart, she felt a little guilty. If she only looked at those few books, she wouldn't be able to make such a judgment. However, who asked her to have such a heaven-defying cheat like the Chaos Ring. Hong Zhuang, looking at you, you seem to have memorized most of these materials. Nangongwu slowly said. She had already asked Bailey Hongzhuang a lot of materials in this area previously, and Bailey Hongzhuang was able to answer her accurately. In this way, they could save a lot of time in this aspect and use it mainly to make explosives. If you have any materials that you don't know, you can ask me. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, indicating that she understood. She knew all the materials in this explosives workshop. This was because the Chaos Ring had more materials. There were even many materials that were not in the explosives workshop. But in the Chaos Ring, there were many materials that were not in the explosives workshop. Mistress, I know most of the materials here. Why don't we make explosives? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with interest. Until now, although she knew most of these materials, she had never made explosives before. After understanding this content, she felt that counting explosives was a very strange skill. According to the middle-aged uncle in the Chaos Ring, when their explosives count reached a certain level, cultivators could make extremely powerful explosives. They could even integrate their own martial arts into the explosives to continuously increase the power of the explosives. Bailey Hongzhuang was very curious about this point. When cultivators were in a battle, they were most worried that they didn't have enough elemental energy and couldn't support it. If they could integrate their martial arts into the explosives beforehand, then it would be no different from others. They would have more elemental energy than others. In this way, their chances of winning would be much higher. Almost at the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang knew that this was an excellent opportunity. If she could master this kind of explosives, then she would undoubtedly have another tyrannical trump card in the future. However, she had not even made the most basic explosives yet. It was undoubtedly extremely difficult to make that kind of explosives. However, as long as there was hope, Bailey Hongzhuang would not give up. She had understood the use of explosives and the identification of materials for so long, so she was very interested in making explosives. Chapter 1986. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to try making explosives by herself after reading a few books, Nangongwu couldn't help but be shocked. You want to start making explosives now? In the beginning, when Nangongwu was learning explosives, she also had the courage to try it for the first time after understanding all the materials and the process of making explosives. Moreover, when she tried for the first time, she was accompanied by her master. She didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang's courage was even bigger than her. Now she just read a few books, and she already dared to start making explosives. However, she liked it. She liked this kind of cultivator, who dared to do things. If they were timid and stagnant, they would not be able to achieve excellent results. On the contrary, if they just did what they thought, they might have unexpected results. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Nangongwu. Perhaps her current approach was a bit shocking. After all, in the eyes of Nangongwu, she just read a few books, and now she wanted to make explosives. Perhaps in the eyes of the master's wife, she was a bit too unreliable. However, for the current Bailey Hongzhuang, what she needed most was to save time. Therefore, even now, her actions were somewhat shocking in the eyes of Nangongwu, but she still had to do it. Many things were simply unexplainable. Just like in the eyes of many people, she had mastered medical skills, alchemy skills, and inscription techniques. This was something that others could not understand at all. In this case, she didn't mind shocking the world. Some geniuses couldn't be explained by common sense. She believed that when she did it, she didn't need to explain anything anymore. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and said, "Yes, I want to try making it myself." Hearing this, Nangongwu smiled and said, "Okay, then you can try it. I will help you watch by the side. If there is any problem, I will stop you at the first time. I won't let any danger happen." Nangongwu's expression was full of affection and appreciation. Now she only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was more and more in line with her character. When a beginner made explosives for the first time, there needed to be a veteran to watch by the side, because explosives were originally a very dangerous thing. If there was even the slightest deviation, it could lead to an explosion, which could harm him. Regardless of whether Bailey Hongzhuang was full of confidence in herself or just wanted to try it herself, she needed to watch from the side. If Bailey Hongzhuang really had the confidence to make explosives successfully, then she was naturally extremely happy, because this proved that Bailey Hongzhuang had a strong talent in this area. If Bailey Hongzhuang didn't have confidence, but just couldn't resist the impulse to try it, then she could stop Bailey Hongzhuang to realize that this was not a simple thing, and continue to learn humbly. Seeing that Nan Gongwu didn't doubt her at all, but was very happy to let her start making explosives, Bailey Hongzhuang was also a little surprised. However, after thinking about it carefully, she already understood. The character of her master's wife was different from others. Chapter 1987. After confirming that Bailey Hongzhuang was going to try making explosives by herself, Nan Gongwu stood quietly at the side and watched Bailey Hongzhuang prepare. Bailey Hongzhuang took out the materials needed to make explosives one by one in front of her. Whether it was grinding or baking, Bailey Hongzhuang began to make them one by herself. Although she had not started making explosives under the guidance of the middle-aged uncle in the Chaos Ring, she had seen the middle-aged uncle demonstrate a few times. The middle-aged uncle explained the process of making explosives to her very clearly, and she remembered everything clearly in her heart. Originally, if she continued to learn in the chaos world, she could also start making explosives. However, since the mistress had come to look for her, she would try making explosives in the real world first. After returning to the Chaos Ring at night, she should perform better. After all, the middle-aged uncle this time was extremely powerful. If she failed in making explosives, she would be punished. Therefore, she would try it out in the real world first, so that she could avoid physical pain. The three beasts stood quietly at the side. They naturally wanted to help their mistress, but in this situation, it was better to pretend that they did not know anything. Nan Gongwu thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would have some problems in the process of making these materials. Thinking back to the first time she made explosives, she had studied explosives for a longer time than Bailey Hongzhuang. When she tried to make explosives for the first time, she had memorized all the steps in her heart. However, when she really tried it out, there were still many mistakes. This was because there was always a difference between imagination and actual operation. However, so far, Bailey Hongzhuang's production had not made any mistakes. Although her movements were much slower than hers, it was already very good that she did not make any mistakes. Practice makes perfect. As long as she did not make any mistakes when making explosives, it was understandable to spend more time. As Bailey Hongzhuang became more and more skilled, the time could be shortened. Bailey Hongzhuang memorized every step and carried it out one by one in an orderly manner. This was also thanks to Bailey Hongzhuang being an alchemist and an inscription master. She had already developed this kind of methodical character when she was learning these things before. No matter what she was doing, she would not be careless. Therefore, even though it was her first time producing, she was not in a hurry. Finally, in the process of slowly mixing the materials, Bailey Hongzhuang was finally able to mix all the materials. Next, it was time for Bailey Hongzhuang to make the explosives. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but close her eyes. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, Nan Gongwu's eyes were filled with doubt. She didn't understand what Bailey Hongzhuang was doing all of a sudden. Compared to Nan Gongwu's confusion, the three beasties seemed to understand a lot more. They had been by Master's side for so long, and had a certain understanding of Master's actions. Right now, Master was sorting out all the contents. She would only choose to make a move after Master had thought it through. This kind of situation would also occur when the Master was refining a higher-grade pill. Bailey Hongzhuang closed her eyes and thought about the process of the middle-aged man making explosives. Chapter 1988. However, she needed to remember everything clearly to ensure that there wouldn't be any problems during the production. After all, she wasn't alone here. Master's wife was here too, and so were the three beasts. If there were any problems, it would be really bad. After a moment, Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes. She had already thought through all the contents clearly in her mind. Now, She was going to make the explosives according to the middle-aged uncle's method of making explosives. Nan Gongwu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, and her heart was filled with admiration. Regardless of whether Bailey Hongzhuang could successfully make the explosives, at least she didn't make any mistakes when she prepared these materials. Every explosive would fail the first time it was made. As long as she made it a few times, she would be able to succeed. Now, she only felt that she wouldn't be bored when she was developing explosives in the future. With Bailey Hongzhuang's talent, as long as she was willing to study hard, she believed that it wouldn't take long for her to have excellent results in this area. Perhaps in the future, she could discuss the progress of explosives with Bailey Hongzhuang. Usually, she always studied these by herself, and it was too boring. Now that she had someone close to her to study with her, it was really something to be happy about. In making explosives, the weight of the powder was also very particular. Whether it was a little more or a little less, it could cause a completely different effect. Only with perfect accuracy could the explosives be made successfully. Bailey Hongzhuang weighed the materials with a precision instrument. However, the production of explosives mainly depended on the materials and the specific gravity, which was very difficult. However, during the real production, the mental power consumed was indeed much less than the number of inscriptions and alchemy skills. This was because she only needed to follow a certain order and put the materials together, and the explosives could be made successfully. As long as there weren't any mistakes along the way, there wouldn't be too much of a problem. Therefore, although it was Bailey Hongzhuang's first time making explosives, she was full of confidence in herself. The explosives workshop fell into silence. Bailey Hongzhuang kept adding materials inside, and Nan Gongwu was watching from the side. She found that Bailey Hongzhuang's measurement of the materials was very accurate. Regarding this point, she also understood that Bailey Hongzhuang's previous study of inscription technique was also helpful to this point. In Nan Gongwu's opinion, Bailey Hongzhuang was likely to succeed in making the explosives this time. Thinking of this, Nan Gongwu could not help but be a little surprised. The book that was given to Bailey Hongzhuang did indeed contain the method of making the most common explosives. However, the fact that Bailey Hongzhuang could remember everything so clearly and complete it step by step was truly amazing. As time slowly passed, Bailey Hongzhuang's every movement was extremely careful. Finally, under this configuration, Bailey Hongzhuang successfully completed the production of the explosives. When the three beasts saw this scene, their hearts that had been hanging in the air were finally put at ease. After all, the fact that the explosives didn't explode during the process was already a good result. Do you think Master has succeeded? Xiao Hei's eyes sparkled with curiosity. Chapter 1989. She should be able to succeed. Little White pondered for a moment before speaking. However, her tone was still filled with uncertainty. After all, this was Master's first time making explosives. Although it was full of confidence in Master's abilities, it wasn't certain if she would succeed on her first try. Moreover, although it was watching Master's process, it didn't know how to succeed. Master will definitely succeed. Compared to Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai's uncertainty, Baisher was full of confidence in Bailey Hongzhuang. To Baisher, he was full of blind worship and confidence in Bailey Hongzhuang. He believed that as long as Master made a move, she would definitely succeed. Nan Gongwu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with admiration. Although she felt that Bailey Hongzhuang might succeed this time, when Bailey Hongzhuang actually succeeded, she still felt an indescribable surprise in her heart. Hongzhuang, I didn't expect you to succeed on your first try. It's really shocking. Nan Gongwu's face was full of smiles. She finally understood that Yu Linfeng's disciples' talent far surpassed ordinary cultivators, in terms of cultivation and other aspects. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang continued to develop like this, her future would definitely be limitless. At this moment, Nan Gongwu only felt that the Lan family was really unlucky. Although she heard that Lan Qingyan's strength was also very good, in her opinion, Lan Qingyan was nothing compared to Bailey Hongzhuang. If Bailey Hongzhuang had the same cultivation environment as Lan Qingyan since young, then Bailey Hongzhuang's achievements would definitely be much stronger than the younger generation. Unfortunately, the Lan family liked to pick up sesame seeds and throw away watermelons. Not to mention Bailey Hongzhuang, Lan Yunxiao was also much better than his older brother, Lan Jingquang. If Lan Yunxiao's family didn't have this unforeseen event, then the Lan family's strength would definitely be much stronger than it was now. When she thought of Lan Jingquang, she felt that he was really a good-for-nothing. For his own fame and status, he could even harm his younger brother's family. He was really shameless to the extreme. She didn't have any good impression of the Lan family. Yu Linfeng had also suffered unfair treatment in the Lan family, which was why he left. Thus, she only hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang could become better and better. When Bailey Hongzhuang was strong enough to appear in front of others again, she also wanted to see how the Lan family's expressions would be. Although all this didn't happen to her, she could empathize with Bailey Hongzhuang. To Bailey Hongzhuang's Bailey Hongzhuang's family's family, Bailey Hongzhuang to Bailey Hongzhuang. With Bailey Hongzhuang's personality, as long as she suffered the slightest grievance, she would definitely repay it in every possible way. It was too difficult for her to act as if nothing had happened. However, since Yu Linfeng wasn't willing to do so, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't want to force him. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance gave her some hope. Since she couldn't avenge Yu Linfeng, then she could avenge Bailey Hongzhuang. With her personality that abhorred evil, she only wanted to let the Lan family taste the consequences of their excessive actions. Hearing Nangong Wu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but reveal a smile. Chapter 1990. I also didn't expect to succeed. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, although she was only making the simplest type of explosive. But no matter what, there was always an indescribable joy in making it for the first time. Hongzhuang, you are really a genius. Nangong Wu was not stingy with her praise. Over the years, she had seen many talented people in this area. However, to be able to successfully make explosives in just a few days like Bailey Hongzhuang, other than Bailey Hongzhuang, there was no one else. Listening to Nangong Wu's praise, Bailey Hongzhuang felt ashamed. She was very clear in her heart that if it wasn't for the guidance of the middle-aged uncle, just relying on those few books was far from enough. However, since the master's wife had already decided, she would not explain anymore. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't speak, Nangong Wu only thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was embarrassed by her praise. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang's temperament was usually very modest. She was definitely not a playboy. Hongzhuang, since you have successfully made this explosive, why don't we go and test the power of this explosive? Nangong Wu's eyes were filled with excitement. She had seen Bailey Hongzhuang's process of making the explosive. There was basically no problem. Presumably, the power of the explosive was also not bad. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. In fact, she still had some doubts about the explosive that she made. According to the book that Nangong Wu gave her, the amount of weight was slightly different from the amount that the middle-aged uncle taught her. She didn't know who was right and who was wrong, but according to her understanding of the chaos ring, she felt that the method in the chaos ring might have a better effect. After all, her inscription technique was like this. Master's wife, where are we going to check the power of the explosive? Although what she made was only the lowest grade of explosives, but now that they were in Limitless Palace, if she were to directly throw out the explosives, she was afraid that it would cause a group of disciples to be surprised. After all, no one would dare to cause such a huge commotion in Limitless Palace. Those who didn't know would think that someone was attacking Limitless Palace. This kind of thing couldn't be done. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's worried expression, Nangong Wu smiled and said, "With me here, don't tell me there isn't a place to experiment. I often make explosives on a daily basis. In order to make it convenient for me to test the effects of explosives, your master specially prepared a place for me to test the power of explosives." Nangong Wu waved at Bailey Hongzhuang and walked out. Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties followed behind Nangong Wu and walked towards the back of the explosives workshop. Originally, Bailey Hongzhuang thought that the location of the explosives workshop was extremely far back. She never thought that there would be another place behind the explosives workshop. The three beasties' eyes revealed a look of curiosity. They didn't expect that there were so many places in Limitless Palace that they didn't know about. From this, it could be seen that Yu Linfeng really doted on Nangong Wu. He actually prepared so many things for her. Bailey Hongzhuang followed behind Nangong Wu for a distance. Finally, an open space appeared in front of her. Chapter 1991. It was obvious that Nangong Wu often tested the power of the explosives here, which was why this place was in such a mess. Bailey Hongzhuang had just walked to the place where the explosives were tested, and she knew that there was a soundproof array here. No matter how big the commotion was, no sound would leak out. In this way, they could peacefully test the power of the explosives here. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but sigh. Master had really prepared everything for his wife. It's here. Nangong Wu's face was filled with a satisfied and proud smile. I usually test the power of the explosives here. There's an array here that your master specially set up for me, and it has a soundproof effect. In this way, no matter how we test the explosives here, no one will listen. Nangong Wu smiled as she introduced. Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful face was filled with a happy smile. Master is really thoughtful for his wife. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the smile on Nangong Wu's face became even brighter. One of the things that she was most proud of in her life was being able to be together with Yu Linfeng. No matter if it was in the past or now, Yu Linfeng had always been extremely good to her. As a woman, this was her greatest happiness. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Nangong Wu's happy expression, and the smile in her eyes deepened. Speaking of which, Master and his wife were really a pair of lovers that everyone envied. Nangong Wu noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze, and her face couldn't help but turn red. As an elder, she actually said such words in front of the younger generation. She really didn't know shame. Nangong Wu immediately straightened her expression and said, "Let's start now." The three beasties saw Nangong Wu's expression change in an instant, and a smile of understanding appeared on their faces. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally understood as well, but Nangong Wu's true nature was really cute. Sometimes, she felt that such a cute mistress didn't seem like an elder at all, but appear instead. All right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, and immediately walked into the array. Nangong Wu and the three beasties stood outside the array, and Bailey Hongzhuang also retreated after igniting the explosives. This array not only had the effect of isolating sound, it could also prevent the power of the explosives from leaking out. However, the array's range was huge, and with the power of Bailey Hongzhuang's explosives, it was obviously not enough to activate the array. Bang! A huge explosion rang out, and a deep crater quickly appeared on the ground within the array formation. Smoke and dust spread everywhere, blurring everyone's eyes. Looking at the result of the explosions, Bailey Hongzi's eyes, Bailey Zhuang's eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang's after all, it was her first time making explosives, and to be able to produce such power already made her extremely satisfied. However, Nangong Wu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. The effect of the explosives caused her heart to be filled with doubt and puzzlement. How is this possible? Nangong Wu looked at the scene in front of her in a daze. Bailey Hongzhuang's first time making was the simplest type of explosives, and she had also made the same type of explosives for the first time in the past. However, the explosives she had made then weren't as strong as Bailey Hongzhuang's, and it was barely half of Bailey Hongzhuang's explosives. Chapter 1992. After the three beasties saw the effect of the explosives made by Bailey Hongzhuang, their hearts couldn't help but be filled with deep joy. I knew it. Based on Master's abilities, there wouldn't be any problems. White Lion puffed out its chest as its eyes filled with pride. It had always believed that its master would be able to complete it. Reality had told it that it was never wrong to believe in its master. Xiao He and Xiao Bai were overjoyed as well. Even though they had been a little worried that their master would not be able to complete it successfully, the joy in their hearts grew even stronger after witnessing this scene. Master is really amazing. She managed to complete it in such a short period of time. Xiao Hei's heart was filled with excitement. Even though its master had been learning from the middle-aged uncle in the Chaos Ring, this time was still very short. It believed that even if other cultivators received the same treatment as its master, they would still not be able to catch up to its master. That's right. Perhaps Master could personally create such a powerful explosive and turn the Yu family upside down. Once it thought of this, Xiaobai could not help but feel excited. The Yu family members were extremely detestable. Even if they could not attack the Yu family now, they would be happy to see the Yu family being affected and thrown into chaos when they were rescuing their master's parents. After all, the Yu family had been arrogant for so many years. It was time for them to suffer the consequences of their actions. When Bailey Hongzhuang heard Nangong Wu's words, her pitch-black almond-shaped eyes could not help but fill with suspicion. She had felt that the power of her explosives was not too bad. Why would Mistress say that? Could it be that there was a problem with the explosives that she had created? Mistress, what's wrong with my explosives? Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but ask. When she heard Bailey Hongzhuang's question, Nangong Wu did not reply immediately. Instead, she walked into the formation. She had been standing quite far away earlier on, and had only seen the power of the explosion from afar. She had not been able to see it clearly. However, when Nangong Wu walked closer and saw the gigantic crater, her heart could not help but gasp in surprise. She had not seen wrongly. The power of this explosion was much stronger than the simplest explosives. Hongzhuang, how did you make these explosives? Nangong Wu couldn't help but ask. Previously, she had noticed that the materials Bailey Hongzhuang had prepared were nothing special. They were the most basic materials used for explosives. Moreover, she saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had used the same amount of materials in the first few batches. At that time, she saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was very careful with every step she took, and there was no difference in the amount of food she took. She was relieved and did not continue watching. In her opinion, Bailey Hongzhuang was not only an alchemist, but also an inscriptionist. Therefore, she was particularly sensitive to the weight of materials. There would be absolutely no problem. But why was the explosive made by Bailey Hongzhuang stronger than ordinary explosives when they were made of the same material? Nangong Wu felt as if she had seen an opportunity. In the past, she had only thought that the effects of the most ordinary explosives would be the same. However, after Bailey Hongzhuang had tried it today, she had actually opened up a new world. It was simply too surprising. I made it according to the normal situation. Mistress, is there a problem? Chapter 1993. Previously, she had already noticed that some of the materials mentioned in the book were different from the materials that the middle-aged uncle taught her. After thinking for a moment, she still followed the middle-aged uncle's instructions to make the explosives. After all, she also wanted to know the difference between the method that the middle-aged uncle taught her and the method of making ordinary explosives. Now that she saw her master's wife's reaction, she knew that the difference did exist, and the difference was not small. If not, her master's wife would definitely not reveal such a serious expression. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's puzzled expression, Nangong Wu was even more puzzled. She felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's process of making explosives must be different from ordinary methods. Otherwise, the difference in explosives would definitely not be so big. Hongzhuang, the explosives you made are twice as powerful as the most basic explosives. Nangong Wu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a serious expression. It was clearly the same material, but it had such a different effect. If she knew where the problem was, she would have a better research direction. In the past, she had never been able to find a direction. How could she increase the power of the explosives? This had been troubling her for many years. However, the explosives that Bailey Hongzhuang made today gave her a completely different feeling. It was as if she had discovered a new continent, which made her extremely happy. Following Nangong Wu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart could not help but be shocked. Although she only thought that there was a difference in the production, she never thought that there would be such a huge difference in the power. Nangong Wu could not help but walk to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and directly grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. Her bright and beautiful face was filled with anticipation and eagerness. Hongzhuang, Tell me in detail, how did you make the explosives just now? Nan Gongwu nervously looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, hoping that Bailey Hongzhuang could still clearly remember the manufacturing process. You have to tell me the steps of your production clearly. Don't leave out anything. Over the past few days, I've been researching how to increase the power of explosives with other explosives masters, but we haven't been able to find a good way. I didn't expect the explosives you made this time to be twice as powerful as ordinary explosives. If we can find out where the problem lies and apply it to a higher level of explosives, then its power will be greatly increased. Nan Gongwu couldn't help but tell Bailey Hongzhuang the importance of this matter. Only in this way would Bailey Hongzhuang think about it carefully. When the three beasties heard Nan Gongwu's words, they were even more surprised. I didn't expect that the first explosive that Master made would have such an amazing effect. It seems that Master is really a genius. I didn't think that the explosives that Master refined would be so powerful. It seems that Master's attainments in the art of explosives will be very shocking in the future. Xiaohei couldn't help but sigh. Previously, it didn't think that this was very impressive. However, after hearing Nan Gongwu's words, it completely understood. The things in the chaos ring are indeed amazing. It's best for Master to learn from that middle-aged uncle. Xiaobai slowly said. Chapter 1994. Looking at Nan Gongwu's nervous expression, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately nodded and told Nan Gongwu the entire process. Especially when it came to the subtle differences, Bailey Hongzhuang was even more careful. You said that the ratio of the sky ardent stone powder is 5 grams? With Nan Gongwu's understanding of explosives, she immediately reacted when Bailey Hongzhuang mentioned the slight difference. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I put in 5 grams. Did I put in the wrong amount? Bailey Hongzhuang's face pretended to be confused, as if she really had just remembered wrongly and accidentally put in too much. You should put in 4 grams of sky ardent stone powder. Nan Gongwu curiously looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, only to see Bailey Hongzhuang's puzzled expression. It didn't seem like she was faking it. I always thought it was 5 grams. Bailey Hongzhuang's face revealed a vexed expression, as if she was dissatisfied with herself for remembering wrongly. However, Nan Gongwu was extremely excited. You made a mistake. If you didn't make a mistake by accident, how could we have made such a discovery? Nan Gongwu's face was full of smiles. Go on, tell me about the weight of the other materials. In the end, Nan Gongwu found that when Bailey Hongzhuang was making the explosives, there was a difference in the amount of 2 materials that caused such a change. So it's because of the difference in the amount of sky ardent stone powder and sulfate stone powder. Nan Gongwu's eyes shone brightly, as if the sky was filled with stars shining brightly. Hongzhuang, I have to go back and do some research. If I find anything, I'll come to you. Perhaps. Whether or not we can successfully make the explosives this time depends on this opportunity. You should go back and cultivate. After saying that, Nan Gongwu didn't care about Bailey Hongzhuang behind her. She turned and ran towards the direction of the explosives workshop. She really couldn't wait to try it out. In the past, she only thought about what materials to add to increase the power. She never thought that changing the ratio of materials would cause a difference in power. Now, she only felt that her heart was filled with inspiration and endless possibilities. She had to experiment properly. Looking at Nan Gongwu leaving just like that, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. Master's wife's impulsive personality obviously wouldn't change in this lifetime. The three beasts stared blankly as Nan Gongwu disappeared from their sight at lightning speed. Their expressions were lifeless and helpless. Master, we now? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Let's go back to the palace. Master's wife won't be coming to find us for a while. I'll take advantage of this time to study more. To Bailey Hongzhuang, she also looked forward to having more time to learn from the middle-aged uncle. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately returned to the bedroom with the three beasts. Then, she immediately entered the chaos ring. She had already learned about the materials and the manufacturing process from the middle-aged uncle. She believed that the middle-aged uncle would start to let her learn how to make explosives. Yu Linfeng didn't know what had happened. Nan Gongwu suddenly went into seclusion and stayed in the explosives workshop without sleeping or resting. He had gone to take a look before, but was chased out by Nan Gongwu in a flustered and exasperated manner. Seeing this, Yu Linfeng was shocked. He didn't expect to see Nan Gongwu in such a state again after so long. Chapter 1995. To the current her, creating powerful explosives was very important. Raising her own strength was also very important. Now that she finally had the chance to rescue her parents, she definitely couldn't just wait by the side. She had to join in the action. Moreover, once she appeared, she believed that her parents would definitely recognize her. After all, when her grandfather first saw her, he was extremely shocked. Presumably, she looked similar to her grandmother. Presumably, she also looked very similar to her mother. In this way, as long as her parents saw her, they would definitely recognize her. If she wanted to rescue two living people like this, it would be very easy for the Yu clan to find out. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had already thought of a way to deal with it. As long as she brought her parents into the chaos ring, it would be much easier for them to leave. Time slowly passed. With each passing day, Bailey Hongzhuang's understanding of explosives was rapidly increasing. Bang! On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang had just come out of the chaos ring when she heard an explosion. Her eyes couldn't help but be filled with astonishment. This explosion was extremely loud and clear. Even the entire Limitless Palace was shaken by this explosion. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately walked out of the palace and looked towards the direction of the explosion. Smoke and dust filled the air. The unique smell of explosives quickly spread out. Other than Nan Gongwu's explosives workshop, where else would there be such a commotion? Master's wife, did you blow up the explosives workshop? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with bewilderment. If Mistress wanted to test the power of the explosives, she could totally go to the testing area at the back. However, the place where the explosion happened was obviously where the explosives workshop was located. Could it be that there was a problem? The three beasties looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. Nan Gongwu's actions are a little too frightening, right? Xiaohei swallowed a mouthful of saliva. It was already late at night. Most likely, all the cultivators who were resting would have been awakened. This is the rhythm of blowing up the Limitless Palace. I'm guessing the others are also dumbfounded. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't hesitate to rush in the direction of the explosives workshop. If the master's wife accidentally exploded while making the explosives, it would be terrible. Just by looking at the commotion, one could tell how powerful the explosives were. If they had accidentally exploded, then Mistress would not have been able to leave in time. As Bailey Hongzhuang quickly left, the three beasts followed closely behind Bailey Hongzhuang and flew forward. While Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties were rushing over, there was another figure who was even faster than them. That was Yu Linfeng. Nan Gongwu had stayed in the explosives workshop for so many days. Although Yu Linfeng felt helpless, he knew that if he disturbed Nan Gongwu at this time, Nan Gongwu would definitely be unhappy. However, he never thought that such an unforeseen event would occur. Not only that, the power of the explosives this time was much stronger than any of the explosives that Nan Gongwu had tested in the past. If there was any danger, Yu Linfeng couldn't imagine what would happen. However, when Yu Linfeng arrived at the explosives workshop, the scene he saw filled him with helplessness. Bailey Hongzhuang followed closely behind Yu Linfeng. However, when she saw the scene in front of her, her feelings were no different from Yu Linfeng's. Chapter 1996. Ha ha ha. I finally made such a powerful explosive. Nan Gongwu's face was charred black. The smoke and dust had already covered her face, but it couldn't cover her excitement. I never thought that I, Nan Gongwu, would actually be able to make such a powerful explosive. I'm really excited, ha ha. Nan Gongwu laughed as she sighed. Even though her face was covered with dust, her eyes were unprecedentedly bright. Nan Gongwu saw Yu Linfeng and Bailey Hongzhuang, and quickly rushed over. She smiled and said, Linfeng Hongzhuang, I've succeeded. I've finally succeeded. Yu Linfeng didn't care about Nan Gongwu's happiness. After carefully inspecting Nan Gongwu's body, He finally relaxed after discovering that there weren't any injuries on her body. "I'm not injured, don't worry," Nangongwu said. Hearing this, Yu Linfeng felt even more helpless. With such a mischievous wife, he was also extremely helpless. "Hong Zhuang, what do you think about the power of my explosive? It should be able to cause quite a commotion in the Yu clan, right?" Nangongwu said excitedly. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Nangongwu, who was dancing with joy in front of her. At the same time, she was also a little touched. At this kind of time, Mistress was still thinking about how to cause a commotion in the Yu clan. This commotion is very big. All the disciples of Limitless Palace have been awakened by this commotion, Bailey Hongzhuang said. Previously, when she was rushing to the explosives workshop, she saw the disciples of the various palaces walking out of their sleeping quarters one after another. They looked at the direction of the explosives workshop in puzzlement, discussing spiritedly. However, at that time, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't care about what these cultivators were talking about. She immediately rushed over. "All the disciples of Limitless Palace have been awakened by me?" Nangongwu raised her eyebrows in excitement. "If that's the case, then this power is pretty good." Haha. Yu Linfeng grabbed Nangongwu. Even though he couldn't see Nangongwu's face clearly, he knew that Nangongwu hadn't had a good rest for so many days. She must be exhausted. Alright. Now that you've made the explosives to your heart's content, you can finally go back and have a good rest. I'll have to inform the elders later. Many of the disciples think that Yochi's sect has come to attack. Yu Linfeng's elegant face was filled with helplessness and indulgence. He really didn't know what to do with Nangongwu. "Hong Zhuang, I have something to tell you." Nangongwu, on the other hand, was unable to contain her excitement. "It's all thanks to your discovery that day that I was able to create such a powerful explosive." Nangongwu pulled Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. She was really grateful to Bailey Hongzhuang for allowing her to have a better understanding of explosives. However, without waiting for Nangongwu to finish speaking, Yu Linfeng had already knocked Nangongwu unconscious. When Nangongwu collapsed, Yu Linfeng immediately carried Nangongwu up. "Your master's wife is too tired these days. Let her sleep for a while. After she wakes up, you two can have a good chat." He and Nangongwu had been together for such a long time. He understood Nangongwu's temperament very well. If she were to continue like this, it wouldn't take long for her to fall into a coma. The damage to her body would be extremely great. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "Let's let Master's wife have a good rest." Chapter 1997. Bailey Hongzhuang followed her back to her bedroom. She felt that Nangongwu was indeed a genius in the field of explosives. She had only given Nangongwu a direction, but Nangongwu was able to create such powerful explosives so quickly. It was really amazing. "Xiaohei, Xiaobai by sure, do you think that Mistress's explosives are powerful enough?" Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the three beasts in front of her and asked. "It should be enough. At most, we can throw a few more. This has even shocked Limitless Palace. If we throw a few more, the Yu clan would definitely be shocked." Xiaohei said after thinking. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "I also feel that the explosives are very powerful. It should be enough." Thinking until here, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but feel excited. After waiting for so long, she finally had the chance to rescue her parents. Not only that, she also had some ideas about how to create explosives. The chaos ring was really too human-like. After she tried to communicate with the middle-aged uncle, he actually agreed to teach her how to create an extremely powerful explosive. She had not created it yet. However, after she created it, she would throw a few at the Yu clan and collect the interest first. "That means that we can go to the Yu clan very soon," Baishir said excitedly. Now that things had come to this, he was really happy for his master. Following Baishir's words, Xiaohei and Xiaobai's eyes lit up. They had prepared for so long. Wasn't it all for this? Yes. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. When Mistress wakes up, she will definitely start creating the explosives. Once everything is done, we can set off. After Yu Linfeng sent Nangongwu back to her bedroom, he told the various palace masters about the cause of the commotion. The power of the explosion just now was not small. The disciples were all in a state of panic, so he had to calm them down first. When the disciples of Limitless Palace found out what had happened, they too came to a realization. After all, they had long heard that the mistress liked to create explosives. The mistress is really powerful. The movement of the explosives is actually so big. This is the first time I've seen such powerful explosives. It's far beyond my knowledge. Since there are no enemies attacking, we can go back and rest in peace. After the disciples sighed, they all returned to their own houses. However, they felt that Nangong Wu was even more powerful. Although the palace master was a genius, the mistress was also not to be trifled with. After Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the palace, she began to learn how to make explosives from the middle-aged uncle. The master's wife's explosives had already been successfully made, so it was time for her to start making explosives. To prepare to create a commotion in the Yu clan. When the time came, Nangong Wu hadn't rested for many days. She was just relying on her excitement to support herself. Now that he had fallen into a deep sleep, he only felt that his entire body was exhausted to the extreme. His tense mind had also completely relaxed. This sleep lasted for 7 days. In these 7 days, Bailey Hongzhuang had also mastered how to create the explosives. However, the materials in the chaos ring were all virtual. She could not use them in real life. Chapter 1998. Regarding this, Bailey Hongzhuang was not in a hurry. With mistress's rich inventory, it should not be difficult to gather these materials. However, what she needed most now was to wait for mistress to wake up. When Bailey Hongzhuang was cultivating in the heaven stairway, she finally heard Nangong Wu's voice. "Hongzhuang, are you there?" Nangong Wu's excited voice was like the sound of nature in Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately stood up and walked out of the heaven stairway. As expected, Nangong Wu was standing outside the palace with a smile on her face. Compared to the haggard and miserable appearance 7 days ago, the Nangong Wu today was obviously full of energy and vigor. "Mistress, have you rested well?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a smile. Nangong Wu smiled and nodded. "Of course, I didn't think that I would be able to sleep for so long. I think you must have been waiting anxiously, right?" "No." Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and said, "I already know how to make such a powerful explosive. Lin Feng is helping me to prepare the materials. I will start making it in a while. After I have finished making it, you can set off to the Yu clan." Nangong Wu couldn't hide the excitement on her face. Although this matter didn't happen to her, she still regarded Bailey Hongzhuang as her own disciple. Being able to help her disciple solve such a huge problem was naturally something she was happy to see. "Then I will have to trouble mistress." Bailey Hongzhuang did not decline. For the current situation, this was indeed very important. Nangong Wu waved her hand. "What's so difficult about this?" "Mistress, I still have one more thing to ask for your help," Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Hearing this, Nangong Wu raised her eyebrows and patted her chest. "Say it, no matter what it is, as long as I can do it, I will definitely help you. I also want to make explosives. I hope that mistress can provide some materials." Right now, she really did not have any materials at all. Even the cleverest housewife could not cook a meal without rice. This kind of small matter, no problem. Nangong Wu thought it was something important, so it was just this. "Then come with me to the explosives workshop. We will make the explosives together in a while. I can't watch you today. You must be careful when you make the explosives." From Nangong Wu's point, Bailey Hongzhuang's hands was itching to make the explosives after the first time. This was very normal. Many beginners would have this kind of thoughts. "Thank you, mistress." And Hongzhuang and Nangong Wu immediately walked towards the direction of the explosives workshop. And when Bailey Hongzhuang came to the explosives workshop again, her eyes were filled with a touch of emotion. A few days ago, mistress had just razed this place to the ground, and now a brand new explosives workshop had appeared again. Not only that, the things inside were still complete. Master's actions were really fast. Coincidentally, I felt that the previous explosives workshop was a bit small. After raising it to the ground and building it again, it was much bigger. After all, I will not be here alone in the future. You will definitely come here sometimes. It is most suitable to be as spacious as it is now. Nangongwu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a face full of smiles. Look over there. It will be the place where you make the explosives in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang looked carefully and realized that the explosives workshop had been divided into two parts, which were exactly the same. Chapter 1999. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but feel touched. She didn't think that her master and master's wife would actually prepare so well for her. Previously, when you were making explosives for the first time, I had already told Lin Feng about this idea. Nangongwu's face was full of smiles. Your talent in explosives is so high. In the future, your attainments in this area will definitely surpass mine. If there isn't a place that specializes in making explosives, it would be too inconvenient. Moreover, this place is very close to the place where the explosives are tested, so it couldn't be more convenient. Furthermore, in the future, we can discuss how to make explosives together. This is simply something that I have always dreamt of. I'm really too happy. Nangongwu's face was filled with excitement. In the past, there was no one to accompany her. Now she had finally achieved her goal. Master's wife, thank you. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with gratitude and sincerity. You and Master are really good to me. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but rejoice. If she didn't participate in the examination competition, then she wouldn't have been able to become Yu Linfeng's disciple. She also wouldn't have met Nangongwu. Naturally, she wouldn't have everything that she had now. Master and Master's wife were so concerned about her, thinking about her in every way. First, they specially made a bedroom for her. Now they even prepared an explosives workshop for her. When Nangongwu saw Bailey Hongzhuang's moved expression, her heart also softened. Lin Feng and I don't have any relatives in this world. You are just like our daughter. With your arrival, we also feel very happy. Let's make the explosives first. The most important thing now is to complete the explosives. Then we can go to the Yu clan. Nangongwu was obviously not used to this kind of emotional scene. Thus, after saying a few words, she changed the topic. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally understood Nangongwu's character. She immediately smiled and nodded, saying, "All right." As soon as she got close to the explosives workshop, Nangongwu's face immediately turned serious. After telling Bailey Hongzhuang to be more careful when making the explosives, she began to make the explosives herself. The last time, not long after she successfully made the explosives, she had fainted. However, she still remembered the process of making the explosives clearly. Now she needed to make a few sets of explosives. But at that time, everything here had been blown to smithereens, so she needed time to think about it. Seeing that Nangongwu let her make her own explosives, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't ask for more. She was originally worried that Nangongwu would watch her make it. This set of explosives was her gift to the Yu clan. This time, when she went to the Yu clan, she wanted to give them a gift first. Teat leave, S uses SDT caused S caused, teat, TTS. The Yu clan must have approved of Yu Siqing's plan. If the Yu clan didn't help, Yu Siqing and Yu Manlan wouldn't have been able to do this. This was the plan of the entire Yu clan. Aristocratic families had always been unscrupulous in order to achieve their goals. Chapter 2000. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang's target was not only Yu Siqing and Yu Manlan, but also the entire Yu clan. However, the future was long, and she had plenty of opportunities. She believed that this day would not be too far away. The Yu clan would definitely suffer the consequences of their own actions. At least, from the day she transmigrated into Bailey Hongzhuang, the Yu clan was already destined to suffer the consequences. For a time, Bailey Hongzhuang and Nangongwu were both diligently making the explosives. Bailey Hongzhuang had already tried to make this kind of explosive many times when she was in the Chaos Ring. Because this kind of explosive was not ordinary, the difficulty of making it was much higher. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was still full of confidence. The three beasts quietly stayed at the side. This kind of environment was not to be disturbed. Bailey Hongzhuang and Nangong Wu put all their thoughts on making the explosives. At this time passed by abnormally fast. After a period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang finally stopped. Her elegant and charming face was surrounded by a confident and dazzling radiance, and her pair of shining eyes were filled with a sharp light. She had already successfully made the explosives. She was looking forward to the effect it would cause in the Yu clan. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had finished making the explosives, the three beasts looked at each other, and a hint of excitement appeared in their eyes. They would be able to take action very soon. Thinking about it, this was really something to look forward to. After Bailey Hongzhuang finished, she saw that Nangong Wu was still immersed in making the explosives. She quietly stood at the side and watched Nangong Wu make the explosives without disturbing her. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw the process and steps of Nangong Wu making the explosives, her eyes could not help but be filled with a hint of amazement. She had also seen the middle-aged uncle make explosives in the Chaos Ring, but the level of the explosives was also not low, so she had never made one before. She didn't expect that Nangong Wu would be able to do this after she told Nangong Wu some problems a few days ago. It could be seen that Nangong Wu was very good at this. Bailey Hongzhuang secretly decided that once she learned more useful knowledge about explosives, she would definitely tell Nangong Wu. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was quietly waiting for Nangong Wu to finish, suddenly, there was a sound of footsteps outside the door. Hearing the footsteps, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but raise her eyebrows and walk out of the room. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw the three people standing outside the Scissors house, her eyes couldn't help but emit a warm light. These three people were Yu Linfeng, Bewitching, and Situ Yan. "Grandfather, why are you here?" Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Situ Yan in astonishment. She didn't expect her grandfather to personally come to Limitless Palace. It was really out of her expectations. When Situ Yan saw Bailey Hongzhuang, his face revealed a smile. "Since such a big thing happened, I naturally have to come." Ever since Situ Yan found out about this news, he kept thinking about how to save them. There was no doubt that he would be able to save Mu Lingbing and the other person. If he couldn't think of a way, Situ Yan didn't mind directly killing them. Even if there might be some consequences, Situ Yan couldn't care less. It was obviously too late to make a detailed plan. But since they already knew where Mu Lingbing and the other person were, they couldn't let this matter continue to develop. Chapter 2001. Listening to Tian's words, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. She had always known that her grandfather was very worried about her parents' situation. It was precisely because of this that Bewitching had already gone back to inform her grandfather the moment they heard the news. When Yu Linfeng heard Bailey Hongzhuang addressing Tian as grandfather, he sighed in his heart. He had never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and Tian would have such a relationship. When Hongzhuang told them the news previously, they were already very shocked. At this moment, after seeing Hongzhuang and Tian with their own eyes, he was even more amazed in his heart. Perhaps, all of this was destined by the heavens. Originally, he was still worried that Hongzhuang would want to take revenge. She had to deal with the Lan family and the Yu family at the same time. This was not an easy task. However, now that Tiangang sect had joined the alliance, this matter had become much simpler. Even if it was Tian, he could not just watch his daughter and son-in-law being bullied like this and not care about it. Just from the fact that Tian came to Limitless Palace after hearing the news, it could be seen how much importance Tian attached to this matter. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Bewitching also revealed a smile on his face. Master's wife has already made a more powerful explosive. It's now in the process of making it. When it's done, we can see how effective it is. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was filled with a bright smile. She believed that her grandfather and Bewitching would be very happy after hearing the news. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Bewitching and Tian's faces revealed a smile as expected. "We have already heard about this matter from Palace Master Yu on the way here. I didn't expect Palace Master's wife to have such deep attainments in this aspect. It's really amazing," Bewitching said with a smile. Originally, he was still worried that if he could not make the explosive successfully, then this trip would be full of difficulties. However, He didn't expect that the palace mistress would be able to successfully make the explosives in such a short period of time after he left Limitless Palace. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Ma Am's talent in this area is far beyond ordinary people. Palace Master Yu, it's all thanks to you and your wife. Situ Yin turned around and saw Yu Linfeng. His words were filled with gratitude. With regards to Jade Forest Mountain, Situ Yin was similarly filled with emotions. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had already told him about Yu Linfeng. He had never thought that Yu Linfeng was also a member of the Lan family. In the past, he didn't feel much about the Lan family, because they didn't have much contact with each other. However, now that he knew everything, he really felt that the Lan clan was extremely stupid. If Yu Linfeng was still a member of the Lan clan, then the Lan clan's strength would definitely be much stronger than it was now. Many people were guessing Yu Linfeng's true identity, because Yu Linfeng seemed to have appeared out of thin air. No one knew which force he came from. If others knew that Yu Linfeng only had his current achievements after being forced to leave the Lan clan, they would definitely be shocked. Hearing Situ Yan's words, Yu Linfeng's elegant face was filled with a faint smile. Sect Master Situ, you're too polite. Chapter 2002. Hearing Yu Linfeng's words, the smile on Situ Yan's face widened. It's Hong Zhuang's blessing that Palace Master Yu is willing to accept Hong Zhuang as her disciple. Saying that, Situ Yan and Yu Linfeng looked at each other and smiled. They were extremely satisfied with Hong Zhuang. At this time, there was no need to say anything else. Then let's wait here for a while. After Wu is done making the explosives, we'll see how powerful they are. Hearing Yu Linfeng's words, Situ Yan and the others nodded. They were already very glad to be able to hear the good news as soon as they arrived at Limitless Palace. He believed that since Palace Master Yu said so, there should be no problem with the power of the explosives. Originally, they were still worried about what to do if the explosives were not successfully made. Now it seemed that all of their problems could be solved. At this moment, Di Beichen and Situ Yan's hearts relaxed a little. Since things had developed to this point, they would be able to take action very soon. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were talking, Nangong Wu had already finished making the explosives. Although Nangong Wu was making the explosives in the explosives workshop, she had heard the conversation outside. Therefore, at this moment, she walked out as soon as she finished making the explosives. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others immediately focused their gaze on Nangong Wu. Nangong Wu's face also revealed a smile. Sect Master Situ, Nangong Wu said. Hearing that, Situ Yin smiled faintly. Palace Master's wife, I've troubled you with this matter. We're all family, why are you being so polite? Nangong Wu obviously did not care about the formalities as she spoke so familiarly. Looking at Nangong Wu's friendliness, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others revealed a smile on their faces. After spending so much time with Nangong Wu, they already understood Nangong Wu's character. Situ Yin did not find it strange as well. After all, Nangong Wu's character was well known in the world of sections. However, from Situ Yan's point of view, Nangong Wu's character was also genuine. Compared to some hypocrites, Nangong Wu's character was undoubtedly more admirable. I've already made the explosives. Why don't we go to the back and see the effects of the explosives? Nangong Wu's face was filled with excitement. Usually, when she was researching explosives, others would think that she was not doing her job properly. She did not expect that the explosives would have such an effect. She was really happy. When she thought that everyone would want to see the results of her work, she felt a sense of pride. After all, people's hard work should work hard. Following Nangong Wu's words, Situ Yen and the others looked at each other and revealed an interested expression. In fact, to cultivators in the world of cultivation, they always felt that the power of the explosives could not reach a certain level. However, since Palace Master Yu and Nangong Wu were so confident, Situ Yen also wanted to see the power of the explosives. Di Beichen was also curious. The last time he left, he did not gain anything from Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Now that they were so happy, they must have gained a lot. Soon, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others arrived at the location where they were testing the power of the explosives. Nan Gongwu immediately ignited the explosives and threw them into the formation. Chapter 2003. Everyone's eyes fell on the explosive. They were really curious about the power of this explosive. Bang! A loud explosion rang out. Smoke and dust filled the sky, and the whole ground shook from the explosion. The yellow sand in front of them blocked their line of sight. However, with the protection of the array, the power did not spread out. Because Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were very close to the location of the array, they could still clearly feel all of this. When Si-Tu Yen and Di Beichen noticed the movement, their eyes could not help but be filled with amazement. They did not expect the power of this explosive to be so powerful. It was far beyond their imagination. If a few of such powerful explosives were thrown in the Yu clan, the Yu clan would definitely be in a panic. After seeing the power of this explosive, Nan Gongwu could not help but smile. Her clear eyes were filled with pride. This was her proudest explosive ever since she started developing explosives. This level of power was much stronger than the ones she had made in the past. Usually, Yu Linfeng was non-committal when it came to her making explosives. Although he had specially made an explosives workshop for her, from Yu Linfeng's attitude, it could be seen that he did not want her to waste too much time in this area. However, after she made such a powerful explosive last time, Yu Linfeng's attitude changed. This was what made her the happiest. Palace Mistress is really amazing. You can actually make such an explosive. This old man has never seen it before. Si-Tu Yen praised without hesitation. This kind of power was really eye-opening. Di Beichen's eyes were also filled with joy. With this explosive, their problem would be solved. The power of this kind of explosive is really eye-opening. Di Beichen also exclaimed in admiration. Listening to everyone's praise, the smile on Nan Gongwu's face became more and more brilliant. She had never heard anyone praise her in the field of explosives. Today she was really happy. As long as I can help Hongzhuang, I am the happiest. Nan Gongwu said with a smile. Thank you for everything you've done for me. Bailey Hongzhuang bowed to Nan Gongwu, her eyes full of sincerity and gratitude. In a short period of time, Si-Tu Yen and Yu Linfeng quickly became familiar with each other. This was because they all had the same person they wanted to treat well. This person was Bailey Hongzhuang. Just this little bit of connection was enough. During lunch, Si-Tu Yen and the others had been discussing how to carry out the rescue plan. In the end, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen decided to let them meet up with the people from Shitian Pavilion. Although Si-Tu Yen was powerful, his whereabouts had always been noticed by many people. Therefore, they decided to have Si-Tu Yen wait at a place not far from them. If there was a problem, it would not be too late for Si-Tu Yen to take action. If there were no problems, they would be able to solve everything on their own. Nan Gongwu and Yu Linfeng originally planned to go, but in the end, Si-Tu Yen dissuaded them. The Yu clan was a very sensitive clan. If many people suddenly rushed into the city, they would definitely notice. Therefore, the fewer people they sent, the better. Chapter 2004. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen left the Limitless Palace and headed towards the Yu clan. The Yu clan was very far from the Limitless Palace. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen spent a lot of time on the journey. Whether it was Bailey Hongzhuang or Di Beichen, both of them wanted to reach the Yu clan as soon as possible. They only wanted to save Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing as soon as possible. The closer they got to Yutian City, the more excited Bailey Hongzhuang became. Until now, she still didn't know what her parents looked like. Back then, they had been separated for more than 10 years. From Bailey Hongzhuang's point of view, Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing had done so much for her. She only hoped that she would be able to repay them in the future. Half a month later, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at the 3 big words written on the city gate in front of them. Their eyes were filled with a complicated light. Yutian City. This was a city within the Yu clan's territory. There were many people with the surname Yu in it. These people were usually from the Yu clan's side branches. After a long time, this city was formed. Therefore, whenever outsiders came here, they would always attract a lot of attention. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others weren't stupid people. The Shirtian Pavilion had been gathering information for many years, so they were very experienced in dealing with this kind of matter. Long ago, they had come to Yutian City under the pretext of seeking treatment from the Yu clan. With the Shirtian Pavilion's ability, they could naturally find people with strange illnesses. After the Yu clan saw the person with the illness, they quoted an extremely high price. It was no different from a lion opening its mouth. The Shirtian Pavilion's people pretended that they couldn't take out enough money, so they had been waiting in Yutian City. As for Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching, they were the family members who came to give the money. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching had disguised themselves as ordinary people. In order to not be discovered, Bewitching even deliberately hid his aura. He no longer had the intimidating aura from before. This time, their success or failure in coming to Yutian City depended on this. Therefore, they had to make sure that no one noticed them. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the city in front of her with a complicated and cold gaze. It was only a fleeting moment, no one noticed it. At that time, her parents had also carried her here to seek help from the Yu clan. In the end, they were chased by the Yu clan. In the end, he panicked and left her in Fengbo country. Then she was taken away. Therefore, to her, this city was her enemy's city. A city, Yutian City. And silently, he was silently comforted her. Silently. He knew how much Bailey Hongzhuang hated the Yu clan, but now was not the time to make a move. Feeling Bewitching's comfort, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, her expression returning to normal. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching walked into the city together. Mo Yunjue had already told them the location of the inn. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching found it after searching for a while. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching walked into the inn, many gazes fell on them. However, these gazes were extremely obscure. If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang's amazing intuition, ordinary people wouldn't be able to sense it. Chapter 2005. As Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching knocked on the door, there was a moment of silence in the room. Bewitching then said, "Young master, we have already brought the money." As Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching's voices fell, there was a sound of footsteps in the room. Then, Bailey Hongzhuang felt that the gazes on her had quietly disappeared. Obviously, these were the gazes of the people of Shirtian Tower. Just from the performance of these people, Bailey Hongzhuang could see the seriousness and power of Shirtian Tower. When the door opened, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching saw a completely unfamiliar face. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching did not find it strange. The two of them also came in disguise. If Mo Yunjue appeared here, then he must also be in disguise. Almost at the moment when they met, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching had already determined that the ordinary man in front of them was Mo Yunjue. When Mo Yunjue saw Bailey Hongzhuang, there was a hint of surprise in his eyes, and then he smiled. "Come in." After Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching walked into the room, the three of them looked at each other and smiled. "I didn't expect your disguise to be so good. If I didn't know the situation, ordinary people wouldn't recognize you at all." Mo Yunjue had been in Jianghu for many years and had seen many things. Disguise was an important means of Shirtian Tower. Among many forces, Shirtian Tower's disguise could be said to be the best. However, when he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching in front of him, he felt that their disguising skills were even better than his. How could he not be surprised? Hearing Mo Yunjue's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching smiled. Hongzhuang's disguise skills have always been outstanding. Bewitching smiled faintly. In the past, he and Mo Yunjue did not have much contact. Speaking of which, they were love rivals. From the few times he had seen Mo Yunjue, he could tell that Mo Yunjue was someone who would not pass on his responsibilities. Since he was able to become the pavilion master of the Heaven Slaughter Pavilion, he was naturally decisive in killing. This time, Mo Yunjue had helped him and Hongzhuang so much. He was really grateful to Mo Yunjue. Hearing this, Mo Yunjue's eyes could not help but fall on Bailey Hongzhuang. "Your disguise looks very natural and very obedient." It is more difficult to detect than the disguise that everyone uses. Mo Yunjue originally had a certain understanding of disguise, so at this moment, he already knew the difference between the two with a simple look. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. If there is a chance, I will teach you this disguise. Mo Yunjue had spent so much effort to help her find her parents this time. Her heart was full of gratitude. Whether it was words or material things, they could not express her gratitude. If the disguise could be of some help to Mo Yunjue, she would not be stingy. As an assassin organization, the Heaven Slaughter Pavilion usually had a lot of shady situations. At this time, if she could master a good disguise, it would be of great help to them. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Mo Yunjue's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he said with a smile, "Then I will thank you in advance. You are too polite. I haven't thanked you for helping me find the whereabouts of my parents." Chapter 2006. Mo Yunjue waved his hand and looked deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang. Although Bailey Hongzhuang had disguised herself as an ordinary person, her ink-black phoenix eyes were still shining brightly. It had been some time since the end of the competition. Although he knew that he had no hope, he still couldn't stop himself from thinking about Bailey Hongzhuang. After finding out that Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing were Bailey Hongzhuang's parents, he personally came to investigate. In order to obtain this accurate information, their Shutian Tower had paid a considerable price. I've said before that as long as it's something you need, I'll definitely help. There's no need to be polite, Mo Yunjue said slowly. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her head in astonishment, only to see the deep affection and determination in Mo Yunjue's eyes. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't know what to say. During the competition, she had already explained it to Mo Yunjue. However, she also knew that it wasn't easy to forget someone. Originally, she had hoped that Mo Yunjue would have a good life in the future. She shouldn't have bothered Mo Yunjue. However, there was nothing she could do about the situation this time. Bewitching naturally didn't miss Mo Yunjue's expression and sighed in his heart. However, he had always stood by Bailey Hongzhuang's side and used his actions to declare his sovereignty. A long time ago, he had already heard that the Shutian Tower's young tower master was decisive and resolute. He was a powerful person. Now that he had come into contact with Mo Yunjue, he increasingly felt that Mo Yunjue wasn't a simple person. This kind of person was truly a formidable opponent. Fortunately, he had met Hongzhuang earlier than Mo Yunjue. Otherwise, this competition wouldn't have been easy. Mo Yunjue naturally knew his limits and immediately said, "Since you're already here, let's talk about the current situation and how to deal with it." Following Mo Yunjue's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching's faces were filled with seriousness. "We've already confirmed that your parents are imprisoned under Wuxia's residence." Mo Yunjue's gaze fell on Bailey Hongzhuang, a complicated light flickering in the depths of his eyes. "However, according to our understanding, Wuxia is a very ruthless person. Moreover, her medical skills are very brilliant. I think that uncle and auntie haven't had a good time after being imprisoned by Wuxia." Mo Yunjue had never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang's identity would be like this. So much so, he couldn't bear to tell Bailey Hongzhuang. If Hongzhuang heard this news, she would definitely be very sad. Bailey Hongzhuang also noticed Mo Yunjue's unbearable gaze. She couldn't help but frown and ask, "What do you mean by not having a good time?" She had already expected that her parents wouldn't have had a good time after all these years. With Wuxia's abnormal level, she would probably torture her parents whenever she thought of what happened back then. However, judging from Mo Yunjue's attitude, it seemed that the situation was worse than she had imagined. Wuxia's medical skills are very exquisite. Moreover, I've never seen her test the effects of her medicine on humans or animals. Chapter 2007. Mo Yunjue pondered for a moment before deciding to tell Bailey Hongzhuang about this. If Bailey Hongzhuang didn't understand all this now, then when they went in to save people, Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely be shocked by the scene. Under such circumstances, it was a race against time. There was no time to be shocked or delayed. Following Mo Yunjua's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression turned ugly. She had also thought of this situation, but she had been anticipating it. She had been overthinking it. Unfortunately, since Mo Yunjua had said so, then this matter was set in stone. To be used as a lab rat for experiments, this was an extremely miserable treatment. As a doctor, Bailey Hongzhuang understood this situation better than anyone else. She would never use humans as test subjects. At most, she would try it on some animals. If Wuxia had used her parents as test subjects all these years, then the pain they had suffered must be even more terrifying than she had imagined. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but clench her hands into fists. Her veins bulged and her eyes filled with anger. She would definitely return all of this to Wuxia. Even if she made a move against the Yu family, she wouldn't immediately kill Wuxia. She would bring her back and let her experience the torture her parents had suffered all these years. Mo Yunjua looked at the change in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, and his eyes could not help but be filled with worry. Hongzhuang. Under such circumstances, he knew very well that no matter what kind of words he used to comfort her, they would all pale in comparison. Bewitching also held Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder. Actually, they all knew that Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao hadn't had a good time these years. They were probably at their last breaths under Wuxia's torture. However, when the truth was presented before them, they found it hard to accept. Noticing Bewitching and Mo Yunjua's worried gazes, Bailey Hongzhuang quickly recovered from her emotions. She waved her hand and her expression returned to normal, but her eyes were still fierce. "Don't worry, I'm fine," Bailey Hongzhuang said. Although Bailey Hongzhuang said so, Mo Yunjua and Bewitching's worries didn't dissipate. Right now, Hongzhuang was probably just pretending to be calm. No one could accept this. In reality, they still couldn't imagine what it would be like when they saw Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing. At the same time, they hated Wuxia to the extreme. That woman was simply a pervert. If it wasn't for her, Hongzhuang wouldn't have endured all these years of suffering. For the two men, Bailey Hongzhuang was the most important woman in their hearts. Since Wuxia dared to hurt Bailey Hongzhuang, they wouldn't let her off from the bottom of their hearts. "Continue. What's the situation now?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked. No matter how serious her parents' injuries were, she would do her best to treat them after she rescued them. Wuxia usually stays in her residence and has no intention of leaving. Chapter 2008. Furthermore, she only left to get some medicinal ingredients. It's only been a short while, so it won't be easy for us to save them. At the very least, we have to think of a way to make Wuxia leave. Wuxia has a very high position in the Yu clan. As long as she gives the order, the entire Yu clan will move. No matter if it's the Yu clan or Yutian city, it won't be easy for us to escape once we're discovered. After all, even with Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing's strength, they couldn't escape the Yu clan's pursuit. Mo Yunjua's gaze was serious. The Yu clan's strength was indeed not to be underestimated. Furthermore, this was the Yu clan's territory, so it would be even harder for them to move. They didn't have many people with them to fight head-on. Hearing Mo Yunjua's words, the actual situation was the same as what Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching had predicted. "We also have some understanding of this situation," Bewitching slowly said. "We've already thought of a way to deal with this." Hearing this, Mo Yunjua raised his eyebrows and looked at Bewitching in astonishment. He didn't expect that Bewitching and the rest had already thought of a way. "We're preparing to throw a few explosives at the Yu clan to attract Wuxia's attention. As long as she leaves, we'll take the opportunity to sneak in and quickly rescue them. After that, we'll leave Yutian City without hesitation." Explosives? Mo Yunjua frowned. In his opinion, finding a way to attract Wuxia's attention was also the best way. However, what method was this? He had thought for a long time, but he couldn't think of a suitable method. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible to attract Wuxia's attention. Moreover, the explosives weren't very powerful. Logically speaking, Wuxia wouldn't care about such a small matter. "We've made extremely powerful explosives, so we don't have to worry about this," Bewitching explained concisely. Mo Yunjue was also a smart person. Since Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were so confident, then there should be no problem with the explosives. Since you are so confident in the power of the explosives, then this method is indeed feasible, Mo Yunjue said with certainty. After this, I'll take the money and go to the Yu clan to seek treatment. If possible, we'll ask Yu Xiqing for help. While we're there, you can also use explosives. Be prepared. In this way, the Yu clan will be busy everywhere, and Yu Xiqing will definitely choose to leave the house. Mo Yunjue thought for a moment, and quickly came up with a rescue plan. Di Beichen, go and rescue Hongzhuang's parents. If you need any help, my men can help you. If you need to bring a few people, you can also choose from my subordinates. They are all trustworthy people. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. As for the rescue, Di Beichen and I will do it. Mo Yunjue looked at Bailey Hongzhuang worriedly. I know that you want to rescue them personally, but the process is full of danger. If Di Beichen goes, he will have more confidence. Mo Yunjue's expression was serious. This wasn't the time to act on impulse. If he was careless, he would lose everything. Di Beichen was very strong. Even if he was discovered, the chances of him escaping would be much higher. Chapter 2009. However, if Bailey Hongzhuang were to fall into the Yu clan's hands, the situation would not be so simple. Yu Xiqing hated Bailey Hongzhuang and her family so much, if she saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she would definitely recognize her. At that time, Hongzhuang would be in danger. With Di Beichen's status, the Yu clan would think carefully about how to deal with him. However, as long as they did not attack Di Beichen, it would not matter if they attacked Bailey Hongzhuang. Hearing Mo Yunjue's words, Bailey Hongzhuang knew that Mo Yunjue was worried about her and understood the meaning behind Mo Yunjue's words. However, Bailey Hongzhuang still smiled and shook her head. I have already made up my mind. Furthermore, I am confident that I will be able to come out safely. If she did not have the Chaos Ring, it would be dangerous for her to rescue them. However, the situation was not that bad now. This time, she had already made sufficient preparations for coming to Yutian City. She believed that she would definitely be able to rescue her parents. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's determined expression, Mo Yunjue frowned slightly. He had been in Yutian City for so long, and had a better understanding of the Yu clan. The Yu clan was really a dangerous existence. Although he could feel that Hongzhuang's strength had increased by quite a bit compared to the time when she came out from the assessment, this level of strength was still not enough for the Yu clan. There were many experts in the Yu clan. Although they had created chaos, the Yu clan's reaction speed was still extremely fast. Thinking about this, Mo Yunjue could not help but look at Di Beichen. In this situation, it was not suitable for him to say too much. He believed that Di Beichen would not agree to it either. However, Di Beichen's answer surprised Mo Yunjue. Since Hongzhuang has already decided, then let's go together. I will take good care of her. Di Beichen took a deep look at Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang had already told him how to save her. He felt that the chances of success were very high. If there really was danger, Hongzhuang could enter the Chaos Ring with uncle and auntie, and he could bring them away. As Di Beichen's words fell, Mo Yunjue's frown deepened. He looked at Di Beichen with dissatisfaction. You're actually going along with Hongzhuang's nonsense? We've already discussed the countermeasures before, so don't worry. Di Beichen smiled. Mo Yunjue's gaze swept between Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. Although he had some doubts in his heart, he could feel Di Beichen's confidence when he said this. Although they were rivals in love, Mo Yunjue also admitted that Di Beichen was very strong. Di Beichen's concern for Hongzhuang was no less than his. If Di Beichen did not have the confidence to let Hongzhuang leave safely, he would not have said such words. After thinking for a moment, Mo Yunjue said, Since you have already planned this, then I won't say more. Be careful. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen nodded. We will. Then when do you plan to take action? Mo Yunjue asked. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang looked at each other and said, The sooner the better. As long as you have made sufficient preparations, we can take action at any time. Mo Yunjue spoke without hesitation. No matter what he did, he was always swift and decisive. Moreover, in such a situation, Hong Zhuang's parents would have to suffer more if they were to delay any further. Chapter 2010. On the way to Yutian City, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had been discussing how to rescue them. Until now, they had already come up with a plan to rescue them. Mo Yunjue wasn't surprised when he heard Bailey Hongzhuang's reply. He believed that Hongzhuang must have been very anxious when she was waiting for them these few days. She definitely didn't want to waste any time. Alright, but we still need to discuss it. After you rescue them, you also need to understand the escape route. Hearing Mo Yunjue's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. Originally, she was worried that Mo Yunjue would think that she was too anxious. She didn't expect that Mo Yunjue wasn't surprised at all. This made her sigh in relief. Following that, Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue started to talk about the details in detail. They had to think everything through before they could take action. At least, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen still didn't know about the Yu clan's environment and characteristics. Without knowing where Yu Xiqing's residence was, everything was meaningless. Mo Yunjue was obviously very experienced. He had already prepared everything on the map. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen memorized everything on the map. Later, I will bring people to the Yu clan and ask them to find Yu Xiqing for treatment. It would be best if she could leave. If she doesn't want to leave, then you guys can only interfere. Mo Yunjue said slowly. Understood. Di Beichen nodded. After Hongzhuang and I take action, no matter what the result is, it has nothing to do with you guys. You just have to continue acting. After we rescue father and mother, we will leave immediately. Don't worry. Bailey Hongzhuang said. It's too eye-catching for the two of you to leave with two injured people. I'll let my subordinates help you. Mo Yunjue waved his hand and said slowly. This time, he had come to Yutian City in the name of asking for help. So he had to continue acting. However, he was not afraid of danger. If Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had to bear all the risks, he couldn't just ignore them. Hearing Mo Yunjue's words, Bailey Hongzhuang was touched. From the beginning until now, Mo Yunjue had helped her too much. Just this time, Mo Yunjue had helped her find out the location of her parents, and she was already very grateful. She didn't know how to repay his kindness. Needless to say, she knew that Mo Yunjue had paid a huge price to find out where her parents were. Thinking back, Di Beichen had also paid a huge price to find out where her parents were. But he didn't get any results. Whether it was Di Beichen or Mo Yunjue, they didn't tell her the price they had paid. However, she knew it very well. If there was a day that she could repay Mo Yunjue, she would definitely do her best to do so. No need, we can do it. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said. My grandfather is here too. Mo Yunjue, who was originally very worried, understood after hearing the second half of Bailey Hongzhuang's words. The Tiangang sect leader had personally come to Yutian City. No wonder Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were so confident. Chapter 2011. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two discussed how to deal with the situation, they quietly waited for the sky to darken. After all, the sky was too bright. No matter what they did, it would be inconvenient. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen then returned to the house. After Mo Yunjue left, they began to move. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were preparing to rest in the house, suddenly, a cry of surprise came from the street. Lan family's eldest miss is here. So this is Lan family's eldest miss, Lan Qingyan. They had long heard of her name. Seeing her today, she was indeed extraordinary. Lan family's eldest miss is famous for being favored by the heavens. Sometimes, she would come with her mother to the Yu family to take a look. Lan Qingyan. Hearing this name, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes suddenly changed. Regarding this sister, who had stolen everything from her, she had never seen her with her own eyes. Originally, she thought that there was still some time before they would meet. She didn't expect that they would have the opportunity to meet each other today. Bailey Hongzhuang opened the window and saw that the street was crowded with people. Everyone was either curious or envious as they looked at the oncoming carriage. This carriage was covered by a white veil on all sides. It was hazy. Looking carefully, one could still clearly see Lan Qingyan's appearance. Lan Qingyan was wearing a white dress. Her appearance was outstanding. Her eyes were upturned, revealing disdain and contempt towards the gazes of the crowd. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw that Lan Qingyan also liked to wear a white dress, she couldn't help but frown. She didn't think that Lan Qingyan's preferences were so similar to hers. No wonder she had stolen everything from her. It seemed that they were destined to be enemies from the moment they were born. Seeing the disdain and arrogance on Lan Qingyan's face, Bailey Hongzhuang recalled her decade-long life in the general's residence. Originally, all the glory belonged to their family. However, it was destroyed by Lan Qingyan's family. It was obviously stolen, but they took it for granted. Her parents were still suffering in the Yu clan, while Lan Qingyan's family was enjoying the splendor and wealth. A strong hatred burned in Bailey Hongzhuang's chest. Her body seemed to become scorching hot in an instant, and a burning pain spread all over her body. Lan Qingyan's family had caused them to sink into a tragedy for more than 10 years, and she would make Lan Qingyan sink into hell for the next few years. She, Bailey Hongzhuang, was a woman of her words. Lan Qingyan sat loftily on top of the carriage, wearing luxurious clothes. Her every movement was filled with arrogance and contempt. Every time she went out, these people would show such an expression. She was already used to it. These ordinary people were a joke in her eyes. From the moment she was born, she was nobler than these people and received everyone's attention. However, at this moment, Lan Qingyan felt an extremely sharp light. Even she felt a chill in her heart when she felt this gaze. She felt uncomfortable from the bottom of her heart. She couldn't help but look around, but found that this gaze had already disappeared, making her unable to investigate. Lan Qingyan couldn't help but frown. In Yutian City, there was actually someone who dared to look at her with such a gaze. Bailey Hongzhuang understood that her gaze towards Lan Qingyan was filled with murderous intent, so she quickly retracted her gaze. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.